Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome to our deep dive into Joseph Heller's Catch-22.
Catch-22, a classic.
We'll be drawing on an academic analysis titled Catch-22, an examination of the absurdity of war, bureaucracy, and the human condition.
Sounds dense.
It is, but it helps unpack how Heller critiques war's impact, not just on, individuals, but society as a whole.
Got it. So World War II, right?
Right. World War II, but specifically, the story unfolds on the fictional island of Pianosa.
With the U.S. Army Air Forces there.
Yeah, the story centers on Captain John Yossarian. He's a bombardier.
And his main goal is survival.
Exactly. He's desperate to survive.
Which, fair enough, in war. But the novel doesn't exactly unfold in a straightforward way.
It really doesn't. It jumps around in time, back and forth.
Reflecting the chaos of war, and honestly, probably messing with the reader's head a bit.
Oh, absolutely. Purposely so. It makes you feel that disorientation.
Like you're right there with Yossarian, experiencing the war through his memories.
And at the heart of it all is this rule, the infamous Catch-22.
Ah, yes, the Catch-22, the ultimate no-win situation.
So imagine you're an airman. You're flying these dangerous missions.
You're understandably terrified.
You want out. So you think, okay, I'll claim I'm insane.
Makes sense. Get yourself grounded.
But here's the catch. The rule states that if you ask to be grounded for insanity,
it proves you're actually sane.
because you're showing concern for your well-being.
It's like, heads you lose, tails you lose.
Exactly. It's this circular logic that Heller uses to critique these bureaucratic systems.
And it's not just the military, right? It's any system that uses these illogical rules to control people.
To keep them from actually having any free will.
The rules protect the system, not the people in it.
And Heller populates this absurd world with some pretty memorable characters.
Oh yeah, each one kind of embodying a different piece of his critique.
Like Yossarian. He's intelligent, but cynical. You can tell he sees right through the absurdity of everything.
He's constantly trying to get out of flying more missions.
And it's not just about being selfish,
Yeah.
you know? It's like an act of rebellion against a system that's demanding this blind obedience.
Yeah, it's like his way of staying sane, holding on to his humanity in this crazy situation.
And then there's Milo Minderbinder, the mess officer.
Who becomes a war profiteer.
Right, he creates this huge syndicate, M&M Enterprises.
Capitalism and war, all wrapped up in one.
Blurs the lines between patriotism and profit.
And he really embodies this greed, right? This moral bankruptcy that can happen in wartime.
Oh, absolutely. Then you've got Colonel Cathcart, the squadron commander.
Ambitious, wants to move up the ranks.
Obsessed with it. So focused on his own advancement that he puts his men at risk.
Blindly follows orders, even if it means harming those under his command.
Classic bureaucratic self-preservation.
Then there's Doc Danica, the flight surgeon.
He sees what's happening, he gets the Catch-22 and how it's affecting Yossarian.
But he can't do anything about it. Trapped by the system.
And finally there's Snowden.
A young gunner.
His death is, well, it's a brutal reality check.
It strips away any illusion of glory in war.
Makes you face the fragility of life head-on and the senselessness of the system that put them there.
It's a turning point for Yossarian. Pushes him further down this path of disillusionment.
Makes him even more determined to escape.
The system will consume him if he lets it.
So you can see how Heller sets the stage. These characters, they're all pieces of a system that has gone mad.
A system designed for anything but sanity. It's incredible how Heller mixes the humor with these really dark moments in the novel.
Yeah, I mean, you're laughing 1 minute and then,
Bam, hit with this harsh reality.
you really see the psychological impact of war on the characters.
Oh, absolutely.
Yossarian's a perfect example.
He's really struggling, isn't he?
Yeah, the paranoia, the anxiety,
He's losing touch with reality.
you can see it happening.
And his desperation to escape, that speaks volumes.
It's not just physical survival, though.
Right.
It's about him trying to hold on to his sanity.
Yeah, to stay human in this dehumanizing system.
It really gets at this tension between free will and determinism.
Ah, that's a big one in Catch-22.
Are these characters actually making choices?
Or are they just pawns in this bureaucratic game?
Exactly. It's like they're up against this massive force.
The military machine just churning along.
And Yossarian's desire to live, it clashes with what's expected of him.
Yoti, sacrifice, all that.
And then there's that inescapable logic of the Catch-22.
It just reinforces this feeling that they're trapped.
No matter what they do, The outcome's already decided.
It's bleak, for sure.
But even with that, Yossarian and the others, they keep searching for ways to resist.
To assert themselves, to make their own choices.
Which I think speaks to that human resilience, that need for agency.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget Heller's satire.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it?
The way he uses humor, it's so grotesque at times, but it cuts right to the heart of these power structures.
Exposes the hypocrisy.
Take Major, for instance.
What a name, right?
And the way he gets promoted purely by accident.
It's just poking fun at these hierarchies.
Where rank doesn't necessarily equal competence.
Oh, not at all.
And Milo Minderbinder, I mean, he's a walking satire of wartime capitalism.
Yeah, that whole M&M Enterprises thing.
Bombing his own squadron for profit.
It's dark, but it makes you think about how greed can take over.
How profit gets put ahead of human life.
It's like a warning, almost.
And then there's that fractured narrative structure. It all adds to the feeling of chaos.
Right. All the time jumps, the flashbacks.
It's like you're experiencing Yossarian's fragmented memories.
You're right there in his head trying to make sense of it all.
And it highlights the cyclical nature of war, you know?
Like this endless loop of violence and absurdity.
Especially with the way Heller keeps coming back to certain events.
Snowden's death, for instance.
Yeah, it's not just a plot point.
It's a trauma that keeps resurfacing.
Haunting Yossarian, shaping the way he sees everything.
It really reinforces that war isn't linear.
It's this collection of fragmented experiences that stick with you.
Long after the fighting's over.
Let's talk more about those economics of war.
Right. We can't ignore Milo Minderbinder.
He's the epitome of war as a business opportunity.
He turns everything into a profit, doesn't he?
M&M Enterprises, it becomes this massive entity.
Controlling supplies, transport, even trading with the enemy.
And that motto of his.
What's good for the syndicate is good for the country.
Yeah, it's like he's completely warped the idea of patriotism.
It's all about profit for him.
Which I think raises important questions about capitalism in wartime.
It can become so dangerous.
When profit becomes the ultimate goal.
And human life just another commodity.
Milo's like this cautionary tale.
Showing us what happens when we let greed dictate our actions.
Now, what about heroism in Catch-22?
It's definitely not what you'd expect.
Yossarian, he throws out all the traditional ideas of a war hero.
He's not interested in glory or recognition.
He just wants to survive.
Which, in this absurd situation, is kind of an act of rebellion in itself.
Because he's rejecting the system's demand.
He's choosing himself.
And his decision to desert, it's usually seen as a cowardly act, right?
But in Catch-22, it's reframed as this defiant act.
Like he's finally breaking free from the system.
Taking control of his own life.
It makes you rethink what it means to be a hero.
Yeah, sometimes it's about resisting a corrupt system.
About prioritizing your own conscience.
And that's a powerful message, especially in the context of war.
Catch-22 really challenges those conventional ideas of duty and sacrifice. What makes Catch-22 so brilliant, though, is that it's not just about war.
No, it goes way beyond that.
It's relevant to so many things we deal with today.
Those systems of control, the rules that seem designed to keep us down.
It's like Heller could see into the future, you know?
Like he knew we'd still be struggling with this stuff.
The abuse of power, the moral compromises.
It all feels so familiar.
And even the term Catch-22.
It's become part of our language.
It's like shorthand for any situation where the rules are rigged against you.
Where logic goes out the window.
And then there's that idea of commodifying human life.
It's almost scarier now than it was back then.
With the corporations, the focus on profit above all else.
Like people are just numbers on a balance sheet.
And Milo, he's like the poster boy for that.
Yeah, his whole thing was just maximizing profit no matter the cost.
A warning about what happens when we let greed take over.
When we forget that people are more than just commodities.
Catch-22 reminds us that we have to fight against that.
To hold on to our humanity.
And even just the way the characters deal with all this absurdity, it's relevant to our mental health today.
Yeah, that feeling of being overwhelmed, of not knowing what to believe.
The anxiety, the paranoia.
It's like a constant state of information overload.
So Catch-22, it encourages us to recognize those feelings.
To seek help when we need it.
Because it's okay to not be okay.
Especially in a world that feels increasingly absurd.
So given all this, how do we actually apply the lessons of Catch-22?
I think it starts with being critical thinkers.
Questioning everything.
Looking for those Catch-22s in our own lives.
Because they're everywhere.
And we have to be aware of the biases in institutions.
The ways power can be used against us.
We can't just blindly accept things.
And just like Yossarian, we have a responsibility to act according to our conscience.
Even if it means going against the grain.
Because even small acts of resistance can make a difference.
And we shouldn't underestimate our own power to challenge the status quo.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by the darkness in Catch-22.
But there are moments of hope, too, right?
Yeah, the connections between the characters, the humor they find in the midst of it all.
It reminds us that even in the darkest times, there's still room for human connection.
For laughter, for compassion.
And those things can be incredibly powerful.
So, in the end, Catch-22, it's a timeless masterpiece.
A book that makes you think, makes you question, makes you laugh.
And it stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It's a call to action, in a way.
To fight for what we believe in, to challenge the absurd.
And to never lose sight of our own humanity.
Even in a world that often feels designed to strip it away.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.